Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, just how important is Clint Capela to the Atlanta Hawks' success in 2022?
And normally, you guys know I love the number 1913. However, yesterday, not so much.
And last but not least, for the culture, high times at the Bayou Classic? We'll talk about it. That's all coming up next. Don't go anywhere. This ATL Day Ones.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. We thank them for rocking with us throughout this entire show. We really appreciate you for that. And just remember, if you're tired of listening to it on your phone, we are on Amazon, Fire, and Roku. So, yes, you can check out my big mug and Tenitra Batiste, I can't call her a mug, her pretty face, on the big screen. Go and check them out right there. Batiste, not a good weekend for the Atlanta Hawks. They take the L versus one of the worst teams in the NBA in the Houston Rockets on the road. And then they come back home and take the L against the Miami Heat. Sans Jimmy Butler, 106-98 T. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and without Duncan Robinson. So you figure, okay, without the guy who essentially runs that team, who essentially is their primary ball handler, I don't care. Sorry, Kyle Lowry, it's just not you. But he's essentially that guy. Duncan Robinson is the guy who typically torches you from the perimeter. Right. And so it looks like it should be free and clear, except you don't have your guy. And how interesting is it, and taking nothing away from Bogdan Bogdanovic, right? But we know that's more of a long-term out, if you will. But if you look at their two short-term outs and you look at the Hawks, Clint Capela, their long-term out, it's like, hey, that should have been a wash in favor of the Hawks, but they just couldn't get it done. And here's the interesting thing, Jarvis, when you dig into the numbers, at the end of the game, the numbers are actually very similar in terms of the field goal percentage, three-point percentage, rebounding. Every category, those numbers are the same. But the difference is those numbers were bolstered for the Hawks in the first half. For the Heat, not even the second half, the third quarter. That's all it took, was one quarter of a heavy dose of Bam Adebayo, and that's done.
Goodness. That was the thing that I just found just ridiculous. Like when you think about how they were able to get him open and he had like 6 to 8 points on the lob, and Nate McMillan even talked about how frustrating that was. And like, man, come on, guys, you can't let them beat you the same way over and over again.
Right.
So, and I think that was one of the things that kind of stood out in Caleb Martin, how he was allowed to just go ballistic. I was just like, like Caleb Martin, okay, fine player, but he ain't that great. And then. Yeah. You know, just from offensively from the Hawks, you know, like you said, it was a tale of two halves, right? You know, they stopped the ball well from deep in the first half. Second half, not so much. And when I think that one of the things that the Hawks have to really have to realize and figure out is when you don't have a guy who can get those offensive rebounds for you, and Clint Capela not being on the court, you have to be aggressive. When he's not in the paint, clogging the paint, or standing there for the rebound, when that paint is free and clear, you have to get aggressive and get to the basket. And Dejounte Murray and Trae Young, they didn't necessarily do that. I felt like they really settled for those long, Trae Young specifically, those long 3-point shots that we normally love when he makes, but when he's not making them, it's not a good look. And I think that Trae has to continue to be aggressive. Dejounte has to be aggressive when they understand what that lineup is. If that lineup doesn't have Clint Capela in their tee, like, you probably need to get to the rack as much as possible, because you're going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to foul calls from the referee.
Agreed. And if you can't get it out of your five, right, then, and this is one of the questions, maybe a question that now brings something different to the table for Travis Lincoln Landry Fields, because yes, the conversation has been about John Collins because Clint Capela has been so healthy and so effective this year. We have not had any conversation about the 5 because we didn't even think about needing a backup because they haven't needed one. Now, all of a sudden, there's some dental issue that he's going through, some ongoing pain that he's supposed to be dealing with. And so you have to then put in Onyeka Okongwu. And you know, I love Double O just as much as the next person, if not more. I think that he has a fantastic game, but it is the game essentially of a backup 4, not a backup 5. So now we're back to square one. Like, okay, first we thought the primary responsibility or the primary focus for the front office was going to be get somebody who's a better 4 for you, just in terms of consistency, because I don't want to take away from John Collins' game, because of course last night he was Mr. Double-Double. The challenge is we're 20 games in, and 10 of those games he's Mr. Double-Double, and 10 of those games he's Mr. Ghost. So that's where the challenge is, I feel. But now this situation that we saw last night, Jarvis, I felt like with these back-to-back losses, with similar kind of meltdowns down the stretch, in the paint in particular, now it's like, okay, you've got to acknowledge 2 things. You might need to look for a backup to your 5, but also you have to acknowledge that maybe, okay, there's truly an issue at the 4 when it comes to a starting 4, because, and I want to just share this with you because this kind of got under my skin a bit. When I listened to the post-game commentary, heard what you said about Nate McMillan, thought that comment was spot on. Did not think John Collins' comment was spot on, where he said, quote, people think it's just easy to slice up a zone. There are open spots, but it just takes time off the clock. You're not going to get the perfect shot every time. Well, that seems to be hypocritical, or seems to be not hypocritical, but it seems to fly in the face of what Nate McMillan was saying, which is basically, I mean, you played the defense how you played the defense that, I mean, it wasn't like they just set a zone in the second half. They were zoning you somewhat in the first half. It's just that they clamped down on their defense, and then you didn't clamp down on yours. And that started to affect your offense as well. And I think, to me, that just sounded like an excuse. Because at this point in time, Jarvis, how many times have they seen Miami use the zone to perfection on them? You as a player, not just Nate as a coach, you as a player have to figure out how to play your way out of the zone.
Yeah, and I think that when these times come, you know, we're so quick to blame the coach, but at the end of the day, these dudes get paid, T. And for somebody to sit up there and come up with an excuse and say, well, you know, nah, man, you know how to beat a zone. You doggone find that insert, because it's not like you don't have the ball handlers to do it. Like if you didn't have a true point guard, or you had a guy who's really a scoring 2 or off ball 2 and running the point, yeah, okay, I might get that, I might accept that, but you have 2 legit point guards, like two legit point guards. So I think that if you are the leader that you say you are, and you know, I hate to go here, but if you are the leader that you say you are, you're like, hey man, let's get to the hole. Let's get to the paint. Like, let's run some pick and roll. Let's do what we need to do in order to you know, slice this doggone zone. Because at the end of the day, they just came down the court and, okay, y'all back in that zone again. Oh, we're going to shoot our way out of it. Nah, it wasn't working like that.
At least not the long ball, shoot your way out of the zone. Like you said, the best way for you to go in is attack mode. And then the other thing is, when you go in attack mode, Jarvis, sometimes even if the ball doesn't go in the basket, you are at least making the Heat work harder. And if you can make them work harder on the defensive end, maybe it's tougher on them on the offensive end, which we did see in the fourth quarter, 21-17.
Right.
So we saw it, but unfortunately, what you did in the third quarter was just way too much to overcome. And you just can't keep doing that. And you're doing it now against teams like the Rockets, like you said, that are the very last spot in the Western Conference. But also, Jarvis, this is the type of opportunity where when the Heat are 10-11 and they are in 10th place in the East, you got to take advantage of that, because you're going to play them one more time at home, and then you got to play them back-to-back in Miami. This was a game that you absolutely should have taken in what we already know is going to be the tightest of tight races in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you're talking about 1 or 2 games separating 5 to 6 teams.
Crazy.
So it is crazy for sure. As like I said, we're 20 games in. The Hawks take on the 76ers tonight on the road. They have no James Harden, so we'll see if they can figure out this one. They normally have the 76ers they have that normally wrapped up when they play against that team, but we shall see. As first tip is at 7:00 tonight, and we'll see how that goes. Let's talk a little Georgia Tech. How about this? Our own not our own, AJC's Ken Segura put out a little tweet last night saying that, hey, according to his sources, that the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets have hired. They are in talks of finalizing a contract. No, I'm being very specific right here. They are finalizing a contract with Willie Fritz. Used to be Georgia Southern head coach. He's now the head coach at Tulane. And we come to find out that wasn't necessarily true. ESPN Pete Thamel said, no, that is not the case. And as a matter of fact, they have interviews scheduled for today. So, what's going on with Ken and these reports about Willie Fritz, a guy who's 62 years old, and I don't know if I'm trying to hire a guy like that, to help rebuild my program or establish some type of culture for Georgia Tech going forward. But what is going on? What is J-Bat doing over there?
Yeah, that was very, very interesting, for Ken Segura, and you hate that because it's like, okay, he covers that team on a day-to-day basis,
Indeed,
right?
Yes.
And so you hate to see him kind of be scooped by someone else, but the reality is that it's actually interesting to me, but understandable that Tech is still interviewing candidates, because I know what Willie Fritz is doing down there. He had Tulane in the top 25 since, I don't know, they haven't been in the top 25 maybe since they played in the Superdome. But anyway,
and Sean King was there
since the Saints played at Tulane. But yeah, right. I mean, it's big what he's doing there. But I also think there are a couple of things. Brent Key, not saying that he is the guy, but he better at least be in the top 2, because he at least had you in that game for quite a bit between the hedges on Saturday, right?
Indeed.
He's had his guys playing hard since he took over as interim coach. And even when they stink up the joint, they don't come back the next week and do the same thing. So to me, that's about coaching and being able to reset your guys. And I know that they've tried the hometown guy. They tried the guy who was a Georgia Tech alum, and it didn't work. But I hope that does not automatically take Brent Key out of the running, because let's face it, it was week 11, week 12 in college football, and we're still talking about Tech having the possibility of making a bowl game? Are you kidding me? With what they looked like at the beginning of the season? So I don't mind them going after other coaches, but I agree with you, and I don't want to sound like it's about ageism, trust me. But I also believe in what you're saying, in that you've got to be so very careful about knowing that you got a guy right down the street in Athens and right up the street, we'll say, in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, who can absolutely blow you out the water with recruiting in the state of Georgia. You better be careful about who you get, because it's not just about your head coach, Jarvis. It's about the ability to start recruiting again and maybe some 5-star recruits there as well.
Absolutely. And when you think about all of those things lined up, right, it just it makes sense for J-Bat to take his time and get this thing right and stop and don't necessarily jump to conclusions and think that, a guy like Fritz can get it done. He may get it done, but just from the outside looking in, like, do your research and do your homework and make sure you get the right guy. Now, speaking of doing your research and making sure you get the right guy, how about this? How about you go to betonline.net, because it is, moving cameras and stuff. It is the fastest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. I'm trying to figure, did you win some money on the Falcons Commanders? Well, I think the over-under was like 37.5 or 38 points. Ooh, guess what? You could have won some money if you'd have gone to Bet Online, because it is the top online source for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered we have you covered each and every day for your ATL sports needs. How about this? Go to betonline.net, because it is where you're going to find all the information. They have podcasts waiting just for you, so you can win some money. So how about this? Head to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts.
Yes, it starts with BetOnline, and it ended in the DMV yesterday, at least not the way we wanted it to end in the DMV. But But I don't want you guys thinking we're Debbie Downers and we're saying that the season is over.
No.
That's not what we're saying. Because hey, the Bucks stunk it up yesterday as well, and so the Falcons just keep getting these reprieves. It's like everybody in the NFC South has 9 lives because
All of them
want to take control of the division. So yes, the Falcons had that opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, they did not. So they made the best number in the world, 1913, look really, really bad yesterday, and that really hurt my heart. But that said, I think it's when you dig into how they got to 1913, Jarvis, that is the most troubling. So you and I talked last week when we got the news that Taquan Graham and Kyle Pitts would both be going on IR, which meant they were going to be out a minimum of 4 weeks. And we agreed at that time that we felt like Taquan Graham was indeed the bigger loss, taking nothing away from Kyle Pitts, but TQ we felt like was going to be the one. And I honestly still feel like yesterday there were just points in time where I was like, wow, if TQ had been there, that would have been different. And Jarvis, that could be anything. That could be rushing the passer. That could be helping to stop the run. And let me give you a basic one. That could be tackling.
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? Right. when you think about like those losses, right? And we kind of talked about this on the hangout on Friday, but just it's about take the name out of the tight end position, like take Kyle Pitts' name out, number 4 overall pick, unicorn, all that stuff. Take that out and just look at the production, just strictly from a number standpoint. I said, I literally said, like, I think you can replace that. And they were able to do that because Michael Prue was able to get a touchdown catch. Yes. He was wide open because those are guys who, with, like I said, taking away those names, they're not going to pay too much attention to them. Now, if that Kyle Pitts would have been in that spot, it probably would have been 1 or 2 guys over there, was sitting there lurking, wait for Marcus Mariota to throw that rock. But I think that when you flip it over to the defensive side, T, that's the thing that really hurts because when you're talking about all the issues before AJ Terrell came back, they were having as far as just staying close to wide receivers. They just had so many issues. But in this game, when Washington was dropping back the pass, you start to see a little pressure with Arne Ebiketie and Grady Jarrett. They were starting to get in his face, or at least move him off the spot to where he can rush a throw, because we knew that he wasn't going to, take off running with the football. So, and then you got the passing game kind of situated, and now, like, they just could not do anything when Brian Robinson was throwing the football, and they were running the same exact, like we talk about the Hawks, like counter lineman coming around. Like if a lineman leaves you, more than likely there's one coming back. So how about you go in there and get involved and try to see if you can at least slow down the offensive lineman from turning that corner? And I think that teams have been doing. I've been saying this. Ade Ogundeji, he does not need to be a starter, and here's why. Because teams have been doing the exact same thing, running the exact same type of plays, maybe different formation, but they are running the same exact type of stuff. And they're coming at him, and they're coming at him, and they're cutting at him, and he's continued to play it the wrong way.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense to me that this guy continues to play like that. And like I said, I like Ade. I got a chance to talk to him coming into the season. But when you continue to have the same issues, I have to make a change if I'm the defensive coordinator, T.
Yeah, because you're seeing what, on the flip side, what Arnold Ebiketie is able to do. Right. And, hopefully his injury yesterday won't be something that is long-term, because goodness knows Falcons don't need anything else coming their way, especially on the defensive
side. Not that
side.
guy. Yeah.
Especially not the guy who's trending up.
Right.
In a space where, like you said, you're just not getting enough. You're just not getting enough you're not getting enough from Ade. You're really not getting enough from that core overall. But just, saying, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that it remains the same, that you could feel TQ. You could feel the loss of TQ as well. And, I thought about this as well when we look at the play, because that last play for the Falcons that sealed the game is probably the most talked about thing, not just here, by the way, but nationally. There's been conversation about it as well. And you guys can probably hear that conversation even on our Locked On Sports Today show, because it's really one of the biggest topics. It's one of the trending topics. And it's one where we know it's not instant reaction, but we bet there is still reaction on it even today. So don't forget to, of course, check out after ATL Day Ones, check out Locked On Sports Today, because you can get that information. And of course, anything that looks like For the Culture is going to be in their take of the day, and you can get it there as well. But listen, just seeing that trending, Jarvis, the conversation is still very real about that last play and whether or not the loss in essence, and I want to kind of go out a few other places with, but let's start there. Was the loss more about the player who didn't make the play or the coach who didn't make the right call?
Wow. Oh man, that's a very good question. Because here's the thing, my initial thoughts on it, even when as the game was like looking at the floor of the game, leading up to that play, right? After the penalty, they get the first down and everything, and they run the RPO option where Mariota kept it, and they would lose 2 yards on the play.
Right.
Come back second down. I'm like, okay, Washington doesn't have any timeouts, right?
Nope.
So, and they have all of theirs, which really didn't matter at that particular standpoint. But I think that I literally said this to myself. I was like, Arthur Smith probably want to pass it right here, because here's why. Because like if you throw the football, it's an incomplete pass. You probably make it safest pass. If it's not there, you throw it out the back of the end zone. And then you have two plays. You have two plays that you can run it in. You know what I'm saying? And if they stop you on those two plays, all right, kudos to you. Ball game. Y'all were better than us on this particular day, and you move on. And so I can't really say that it was the wrong play call, because I get that line of thinking, right? Because I understand when we talking about Florida game, and because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're passing on fourth down. That's never the thing when you have to go, because you have to go for it and everything, like or on third down when they know you have to pass the ball. So that's the type of thing that I was kind of thinking about. So I understand it. So I think it might be more so maybe from an execution standpoint. I would lean more towards that, because
I
don't know, because as a quarterback, you're not really supposed to be looking at it. Yeah, I mean, I don't, to be honest with you, T, like, because a quarterback's not really supposed to be looking at the rush, right? Because Cordell Patterson was open. Going back and looking at that play, he was open on that particular play. So I can't. I guess I'm kind of hedging my bets and not saying either one, but I because I understand the line of thinking went from a coach standpoint, and then Mariota, I guess he rushed the pass. Maybe if I can critique it that much, maybe he rushed it, and then from a throwing lane standpoint, maybe should adjust his arm angle or whatever, if you want to get technical. But I don't have no problem with the play call overall.
Okay, and I had a problem with it. Okay. I think for me it was the timing of the play and the call itself. So I don't know that I would have necessarily called that. Now, granted, you have a situation where, the Falcons are first and goal because, hey, you put them right there on the 2. Hey, that's your fault, Commanders, that you put them on the 2. If you put me on the 2 and 5.8 yards per carry was what you averaged in the first half, you were only still down to 4.2 in the second half, but 4 yards a carry when you only got to go 2 yards. I'm just going to give that to you. I mean, you've got bruising backs. You also have a quarterback who can roll out on a bootleg. Yeah, he can run. So
on the edge,
you had some opportunities there. I just think it was a missed opportunity. I don't know that I trust Marcus Mariota to get the ball to where it needs to be in the middle of the end zone, where that whole defense. How was the Commanders' defense able to collapse that quickly? By the time that ball got to CP. And granted, I looked at it about 10 times. So I will give Marcus Mariota this, but I'm going to take it right back. That ball was tipped, but you shouldn't have thrown it that low. If you had thrown it accurately and thrown it the way it was supposed to, it would never have been tipped. But that tip gave the Commanders defense about a half second to reset themselves, and they collapsed on CP. That's how Daron Payne was able to get that ball out, and Kendall Fuller was able to then be there to catch that ball, right? Other piece there, I looked back to see where Drake London was. And if Drake London had curled out as opposed to inside, and Marcus Mariota would have done just a fade into the end zone or thrown it on his shoulder where only he can catch it, to me, that might be more viable, because it was literally just your receiver and your defender. Yeah. Drake London is what, 6'5"?
Yeah.
I'm letting dude to catch that ball. Yeah. I'm letting the defender, and forgive me for not remembering who the DB was, but he ain't 6'5".
No. Yeah.
That's
He's a
all
mismatch.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like there were a couple of opportunities as opposed to me. I don't know about you guys, but I got triggered again because I felt like I was watching Patriots Seahawks all over again. I'm done.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it because and I understand your sentiment for sure. Like I don't disagree with it because Arthur Smith has always preached what? Hey, we're gonna run the football.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna
Yes.
do.
Yes.
And
And stop us if
that's
you
how
want to.
and stop us if you want to. Like, and we've prayed for these days, right?
Yeah.
Like when everybody in the stadium knows that you're gonna run the football and you're able to do it. They've been able to do that consistently throughout the entire season. I guess I'm making the point against myself, but I understand it. I get it because this is something that Arthur Smith has done a really good job of establishing, right? He's establishing culture. Like, we're gonna come off the ball, we're gonna knock you off the ball. We don't care if you want to run the football, and this is what we're gonna do. Because, like, if we're gonna question the play, what's up with this RPO quarterback keeps situation and the shotgun? Like, come on now, what's up with that? Like, I don't. And from the 2-yard line, like, if we're gonna question play, that's what I would question. I was just like, come on, bro. Like, now all these formations you've been running, they've been so successful.
And actually,
you know what I mean? Go ahead.
Hold that thought because I really want to get into that tomorrow. You guys come back because I got questions for Jarvis. I got thoughts about it because we want to get into, like you said, Jarvis, looking at each of those drives, if you will, including that last drive, and look at the difference in the play calling, and had that not made a difference in what we saw overall. But again, Jarvis and I are going to keep digging into it tomorrow. We're going to get more into some of those kind of offensive miscues and kind of some of the things that we saw the defensive miscues as well.
Absolutely, because this is one of the things that we're gonna make sure we dig into, because this was a big game. We talked about it. We talked about how this was a big game for Arthur Smith, and I thought overall, I think he had a really solid game plan for the Washington Commanders. That's why they were in it with down one score with a chance to win it at the end of the game, and that's what we've seen from this team pretty much consistently. So I'm not gonna sit up here and lambaste Arthur Smith, but we are going to critique that bad boy fairly. That's because that's what we do right here. Now, T. Now I said that this is not coffee. I'm just go ahead and keep it funky with y'all, because for those of you watching on TV, on YouTube, I'm sorry, on your TV, on your mobile device, however you get down, we have made it to 5,000 subscribers. And guess what, guys? Salute. Woo, that's not coffee for those of you watching right there on TV. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for rocking with us and hitting that subscribe button. If you have not, hit that subscribe button. You can be a part of greatness as well, because we're trying to get this. Now we're trying to get to 6,000. Golly, Jarvis, can't relish in the moment. No, we can't. We don't settle on this show. We are trying to achieve greatness. We're trying to do some great things around here. But I think that's some of the things that you guys are going to have to continue to do. We really appreciate that. And you can always remember, we download us wherever you get your podcast. And before we get out of here, we have to talk about what went down at the Bayou Classic. Now, T, I know your family is deep in this thing, but when I came across this story, I had to send it to you, because from there's a video out there at a brother, sitting there at the game, chilling. Then he got something in his hand that kind of looks like something that was rolled up, something the cool kids call it a blunt, is what it looked like. And he had a lighter, and he started, going across the thing as if he was, trying to light it up at the game. And, it looked kind of a little awkward. But T, come to find out, it was a rib.
One rib?
Like, what do you question the most? It looking like him about to fire up a blunt, or him taking a lighter to a rib?
Right. One rib.
One rib.
I just
with a lighter, T.
With a lighter?
What? That must have been some great barbecue.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh my God!
Thinking like, oh my God, I didn't even think you could get that into the stadium these days, just because of all the security precautions and security measures that are being taken. But again, I mean, if your rib had turned cold, like, did you bring the rib with you? And unfortunately, the foil that you wrapped around it didn't keep your rib as hot as you wanted it to be. So you figured that you just warm it up. Like, okay. So that's one option, because some of our folks will try to bring in their own food.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
My God. Please, God, please don't let the people who watch ATL Day Ones and who know I am from Louisiana think that this is what the rest of us do. No, church, man.
Straight from Homo. What? Not Homo. I'm sorry. Excuse me. My bad.
Oh, my.
Homa. Sorry. Homa. Louisiana. Goodness gracious. Oh my God. All right. Before we get out of here, I have to mention this. Shout out to my dog, the homie, friend of the show.
Yes.
Lifelong, just not lifelong, but probably about the last 10 years. Hugh
the
Douglas
life of the show.
Right, the life of the show. Hugh Douglas has been an absolute just great human being to UT, I know, and to myself. And he got inducted into the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame over the weekend. And then when you're talking about that acceptance speech, T, I think it was just prime time Hugh.
It was. And the funny thing is, I was telling people at the station this morning, they were like, oh my God, we can't wait to talk to Hugh about that, that spontaneous speech. And I was like, it wasn't spontaneous. He practiced that with me before he did the speech. Yeah, we had a script.
Oh, yes.
So I literally told him, okay, Hugh, you need to say this, that, and the third, but can you leave out?
Drop that F-bomb in there. Yeah, no doubt.
It's my boy. He couldn't be anybody but who he was. I tried everybody. I tried to censor it.
Yes. No.
Like, he doesn't stay on script.
It wouldn't have been,
and certainly not in his speech.
It wouldn't have been Hugh Douglas if he had dropped that F-bomb in there. Because, that's
because he was one of my favorite players back in the day. I used to ride with him so hard. And then just him, with that representation of his HBCU, Central State University, that was just exciting. So, congratulations, like you said, and just well done. And we so hope that tomorrow, when we come back, we can say the same about the Hawks. Well done. Get it done. Okay. You know what the Sixers are like. You know that you guys, that's one of the teams you have their number. So go ahead and act like you do. Come back here with a win tomorrow so Jarvis and I can talk about that. And like I said, we have some more digging that we need to do, some more breaking down of this Commanders Falcons game. Come back tomorrow and we'll have all that for you.
Absolutely. Y'all come back now, you hear?